I don't have my son anymore. Merry Christmas. December 14th, 2020, I stood at your podium and offered solutions in a chaotic room. I advocated for safety and logic. I was on team DD2, and I was wearing for Claire, and I haven't forgotten.
Next we have Jason Brockert.
Good evening, board members. First, I would like to say thank you for all of the monumental efforts that have been put forth. As we've already said, we've already heard, it's been a huge effort, right? A lot of planning went into it. We appreciate that. I'd like to advocate, as before, for the teachers that I know that are concerned about their classrooms and the families that are taking this seriously and they are concerned about themselves and their extended families that they do visit. Knowing that this is very divisive, we have camps deeply entrenched on both sides. It's very political, right? It's very emotionally charged. We need to respect everybody's opinions, everybody's stances equally. Not to rehash all of the data, the meeting on Thursday was very good. We've been presented with facts and figures. People have made their own assumptions off of facts and figures. It cannot be denied that the current trends are getting higher. They are nearing and or exceeding, depending on your individual location, the spread that we saw in the summer. As it was stated, proper use of PPE has been very effective in the medical community. Proper use of PPE is very different in the medical community than it is in the average community, in our classrooms, with our teachers, with our children. So it needs to be on a risk analysis basis. It really can be simplified. What is the opportunity and what is the severity? Obviously, the severity is very much on the far end. The current hybrid plan is very sound. We have implemented it and found that there are some holes. It does not suit everybody, but it does suit the vast majority of the parents and teachers that I've spoken with that have children that are thriving in the hybrid model, in the virtual model, at home, and at home developing critical skills for today's world. We have people that are working from home that have not been to the office for months. They have to have these skills to continue to succeed. This is no different than what our children are going through. So we've gotten surveys and responses from the teachers, and that's shown itself in Thursday's meeting. We all know where that went. I feel it's incumbent to also get the opinions from the parents and the communities, and I know that that is a large task, but that data needs to be evaluated and acted upon, right? The board cannot make these decisions in a vacuum, and we all have a voice that needs to be heard and respected. Thank you.
Thank you.
December 13th, 2021, I stood at your podium and warned you about the negative stigma around mental health. I told you your culture was broken. You didn't listen, and I got no response. Good evening, Madam Chair and Mr. Pine Board. It's really good that we're nearing the end of the year. Everything's actually looking a lot better. Obviously, we've talked about the holiday trends. You've already mentioned a little bit. So enough about that. Stay diligent. What I really want to talk about tonight, well, what I need to talk about tonight, not that we don't, not that we want to talk about this, how we handle violence and threats and issues in our schools. Year to date, there have been 47 gun-related issues in the state of South Carolina in the various schools. Now, Dorchester has specifically had recent incidents ourselves. We already have rules that exist, so putting more rules is obviously not the solution. Some schools have metal detectors, the pieces and the means and methods, obviously we need to get there, but one of the larger issue, and especially the recent issue in Michigan has kind of laid this bare, mental health is something that we don't directly address. And I actually misstep a little bit. I might have spoken about the policies that were earlier read upon. The policy about health and wellness talks about physical health and wellness. I want everybody to get exercise and eat well and try to be healthy, but at the same time, addressing our mental health is almost taboo. As I read through the policy and searched simply for the word mental, it's mentioned several times and almost always in a negative light. So it's not a policy change, but it's a shift in our way of thinking about it. And we think that somebody that has a mental health issue has problems and they need to be fixed. But, and I know it's getting cliche anymore, but the saying that it's okay to not be okay really needs to be emphasized. And if somebody needs help, they need to not feel bad that they need to get help. They need to not have to go and search out how to get help, because most of the ones that really need help are often the last ones to reach out for help, right? How many times somebody has noticed somebody else's behavior. And so we need to empower teachers to be able to escalate these issues appropriately. We need them to know that they have the full support, that if they notice somebody that needs help, that we get them that help. And before I close on a different matter, any of the DD2 families that have recently opted to not be with DD2, we're completely in the dark as far as what's going on. So don't lose touch with the previous DD2 families that are currently doing virtual or other, and try to get them back in the fold next year. Thank you.
December 12th of 2022, I gave you specific examples of how your wait-and-see approach to bullying was leaving our children unsafe. Your response was bureaucratic, fully CYA.
Okay, next up is Jason Brockert.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Robbins, DD2 Board. One of the policy items, or one of the agenda items tonight is 9C, safety training expectations. This is something I don't really want to be here discussing tonight, but I had a personal, and I will keep this completely anonymous and generic, but in having a personal issue lately, I've had some other friends reach out to me, and I've found something that's kind of disturbing. I'm going to give you 4 examples of bullying, harassment, items that have been brought to administration and action hasn't been taken. So in one, there was a female student that reported to her guidance counselor that a male student had been harassing her on the bus. It had gone on for 2 months. They had previous interactions, and when they went to the guidance counselor, they informed the male student to keep his hands to himself and not sit with her. The parents learned this information from the daughter, not from any contact from the school. So guidance counselor was seen and the parents weren't involved. 2 days later, the mother reached out to see if there was any follow-up other than them not sitting next to each other. They said that the boy and his parents had been spoken to and that should resolve it. A week later, the same student reported to a guidance counselor that it was still going on. There was no detailed questioning, just that there was a note given for her to sit in the front of the bus so that if it happens again, maybe it'll be caught on video. Issue 2. A student was being tormented by several classmates over many weeks. Several incidents reported and a few were not. Reported incidents were handled with a switch seats or wait-and-see approach. The student had been to the counselor, and the parents were not informed by the school, rather told by their child. The student felt so unsafe that they brought a weapon into the school for their protection because they didn't feel that the school was protecting them. Issue 3. A female student was being terrorized by 3 individuals at school during school hours, and it developed into full-blown assault and battery. The incident was recorded and posted to TikTok. The principal was asked to view it and refused. 2 of the 3 were expelled, and the other did not. But nothing happened until the girl had to defend herself, which earned her ISS. Another issue, a 6th grader was told that their parents, told their parents that while they were at a school dance, there was a male going around groping females. This male ended up around her group, groped other females. The girls went to the teachers that were there at the dance, and the only thing that happened is they turned up the lights a few minutes before the dance was over, but no action was taken against the male. So something that I've seen very recently, I haven't looked into this, but having a personal issue and then other people reached out to me, I'm seeing a pattern of behavior, and it seems to me that the teachers aren't given the authority to really take action when students are complaining, citing legitimate concerns. So we need our teachers, we need our administrators to be empowered to actually take action when the students are telling them they have issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brockert.
December 11th of 2023. My son had been bullied to the breaking point while his aggressors were rewarded. I spoke about rigid policies that force my family to move just to survive your system, even if my son didn't.
The first person up is Jason Brockert.
Right. Good evening, Madam Chair, DD2 Board, and Dr. Robbins. Thank you for actually all the reports, as much as some people might kind of tend to wonder their thoughts when this is going on. It's a lot of transparency, and I really do appreciate that as a member of the community and a parent. What I would like to speak about tonight, though, is something that I was expecting to see on the board agenda, which I'm not, and that's the rezoning. On the website, it said that on the 11th of December was supposed to be an agenda item for updates. So specifically, what I'd like to speak to is the grandfathering policies, and I know I actually went to one of the community meetings, so I brought up this question. I see there's a response on the website, but when this came up at the beginning of the year, actually I think it was in between school years anyway, and the discussion started. One of the things that was said was, you don't want to separate a subdivision and have part of the subdivision on this side of the street going to one school and part of the other side of the street attending another school. Well, next school year, in my house, I will have 2 children going to 2 different high schools, because I will have one high schooler that will be continuing at Ashley Ridge High School, as we intend to, and the other one is now zoned for Fort Dorchester, which makes no sense to me. And I know that this is not going to be the case for a lot of people, but I know it's also not just me. A lot of us have children that are staggered a couple years in age. That's a pretty common thing for most couples. And so we had 5 years of understanding that we were going to have to be at 2 schools and go to 2 different functions. And so this was going to be our little bit to ride out of just having one school again. So one of the biggest things, and this was during the community session, was that there are no waivers, no exceptions. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The no exceptions policy should be things for like disciplinary actions, things that go wrong. When we have a policy that says these are the way that things normally happen, there are always edge cases. There are always reasons to give waivers. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should be able to just decide on a whim that I want to go to XYZ school because I like it. But there should be waivers given based on set criteria based on needs, criteria based on specific geographical accommodations or your route to and from school, and then for whatever other desires or needs that you have, and preferably in that order. But again, there should still be some accommodations. So when we have several hundred families that are going to be affected by the rezoning, in that there are some that are going to want to grandfather, some that are not. There are going to be some that should have some form of requesting a waiver or exception. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brockert.
And on Veterans Day last year, you wouldn't give a grieving father the grace of removing a timer so I could speak. Back then, it would have only taken about 6-7 minutes for me to say what I needed to do.
To our next agenda item, we have public comments on agenda items, and this evening we have one. Mr. Brockert?
I'm going to start without my normal cordial introduction. I'm going to ask that the 8 human beings that are sitting behind a desk on a stage right now consider whether or not to remove my timer tonight. I have 2 sets of notes written up. One of them fits in. The other, I can talk more about what I need to talk about. I'll give you 10 seconds. Okay, so that was a portion of my 180 seconds that I have. You proved my first point that you can have good people, I'm making an assumption, good people with good intentions, looking at a rule that's in front of them that they don't agree with. Now, maybe you do or don't want to give me more than my 3 minutes, and that's fine. I have a little less than 2.5 minutes left. I want to talk to you about your board goals for 2025 to 2028.
because I've been at this podium over 24 times. I've spoken about things from how we need to see each other's point about COVID masks, or whether or not we should cancel school, or whether or not parents are getting upset about whether or not their schedule has been altered because of the buses. And I've gotten up here dozens of times and cordially spoken within my time limits. I feel like several of you know why I'm here tonight and would gladly say that I should have more than another minute and 20 seconds. But these are the policies that are set, and these are the policies that we follow. So right now I want to talk about the anti-bullying policy. I want to talk about the lack of following that policy. I want to talk about the thousands of different versions I've gone through in my head that end with only 2 answers. Why did my family not get the help we asked for? Lack of resources or lack of authority. I have never met a teacher that has not wanted to help a child. I know you have a policy that says bullying will not be tolerated. That policy is not being followed. There are more students that are at risk inside the walls of your school, not outside the walls of your school. Not worried about shoring up the borders, but talking about the mental health of the students in our district, the mental health of the staff in our district. To repeatedly say, and I've talked about this before, I've got a different perspective today, to repeatedly say that to hold the banner of we do so much with so little is acknowledging the stress and saying that we are so arrogant that we have it anyway. My son would be here today if y'all had done something different.
Thank you, Mr. Brockert. And while we do have a policy regarding our time limits, I feel certain that any board member up here would be willing to have a conversation with you outside of this board meeting. Feel free to reach out to us, please. All right. Now we will move on to our next agenda item, which is our board chair's report.
But then on December 9th, 2024, you dug trenches behind walls of silence, and I had to use your own cell phone policy to shame you to even look at bullying. This is what I look like in 2024.
Before y'all sneak out, I just want to tell you those are absolutely stunning, and congratulations. And congratulations to your art teacher, because clearly she's doing a phenomenal job.
Okay, the next item on our agenda this evening are our public comments on agenda items, and we have one, Mr. Jason Brockert.
So I took a quick look at the policy ARJCIJ-R, parentheses 1, red lines through it that make it more restrictive. So when we're talking about personal electronic devices, in the policy amendments, there's no description for how the devices are needed to be stored, just in accordance with superintendent's instructions. It needs to be defined. And I'm sure that all of our high schools are going to enjoy the logistics of collecting 1,000 devices every single day, storing them, and then redistributing them if we have central repository locations. So, details. And especially in middle and high school, as my children have been in middle and high school, it's very common for a teacher to have information up on the smartboard or whatever that has a QR code, and they say, hey, scan the QR code, fill out a form, do a thing. Because it's easy, it's convenient. Like, there are lots of reasons why these little supercomputers that we carry around are actually beneficial in the classroom. We already have policies that tell you not to use them inappropriately or at the wrong time, so why do we have to go and further restrict everybody's ability to use information appropriately? It would be good to reevaluate the ability to do some things with your personal devices, like report bullying when it happens. We had to talk about that a couple of years ago. I don't remember anything ever happening about that. Speaking of bullying, you've heard my story a few times, so I'll tell you a story about another family. Somebody that I've spoken with in the last few weeks, whose children were unfortunately affected by the rezoning of the district, and so they got pulled out of their school where they had their friends, and they got put into another school. That's fine, but then the bullying started. And then the parents started talking to the teachers, and that didn't work. And then the parents started talking to the administration, and that didn't work. And then their child started getting anxiety attacks and had to go to the doctor and seek mental health therapy, medical therapy, and then when that child was recommended they be put on full homebound and not have to go deal with the bullies that the school's not dealing with, the district denied, and then it was appealed and denied. For a medical doctor to ask for a thing and then for the district to go through a policy and say it doesn't fit X, Y, or Z for the policy does not seem right to me. Back to devices. We have all of this information at our fingertips. We already have told our children, our students, there are policies about using them incorrectly. Why restrict it further? Why make logistical headaches for everybody to have to deal with? And why not make things more available? 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brockert. Okay.
My name is Jason Brockert, father of Julian Brockert, unfortunate founder of Honoring Julian. And the charity Honoring Julian is here today to ask for your voluntary resignations before myself, the individual, has to begin systematically, publicly displaying all of your ineptitude over a multitude of years, because this is not out of anger. This is out of love. And there is no credibility left in the husks of this institution. I don't have my son anymore. Merry Christmas.